After rewatching the first 3 Bad Boys films and seeing Bad Boys Ride or Die, I wanted to continue my Bad Boys deep dive and finally watch LA's Finest, which is a spinoff of the Bad Boys movies. I basically spent all summer trying to watch both seasons, and it took me all summer not because I thought the show was bad or boring, but because of my summer schedule and all the other shows that I was watching throughout the summer. But I finally finished it, and now here is my review of LA's Finest. So LA's Finest is a spin-off of the Bad Boys franchise in which Gabrielle Union reprises the role of Sid Burnett, who we met in Bad Boys 2. She is the sister of Martin Lawrence's character, Marcus Burnett. The show follows her and her partner, Nancy McKenna, played by Jessica Alba, and it's basically your typical police procedural that just happens to take place in the Bad Boys movies. Now, this show ran on Spectrum, which is a streaming platform that I don't know if it's still going or not, but it got syndication on Fox for a little bit, and they even ran both seasons on Netflix, but the show ultimately got canceled after 2 seasons. Now, the reasons as to why the show got canceled, it is a bit up in the air, but it's also up to you to decide on whether or not this show was good or not. But I was always curious to watch this show, mainly because I'm a fan of the Bad Boys movies, and because I always wondered what happened to Sid Burnett after the second movie and why her and Will Smith's character, Mike Lowrey, broke up, which they don't explain on the show. Now, how did I feel about the show? I quite dug it. Granted, it's still your typical police procedural, but like I said, it just happens to take place in the Bad Boys franchise. But I really was enjoying this for what it was. And Gabrielle Union and Jessica Alba, they really do have good chemistry on this show. That's another reason why I also decided to give this show a chance, is because right now Jessica Alba is having a career renaissance right now in terms of acting. But at times it's also nice to be reminded that Jessica Alba, she can do more than what movies try to box her in as. She can do action, she can be funny at times, and if given a good script, she can excel. And I already knew what Gabrielle Union is capable of as an actress, and the fact that she's on this show and the fact that they finally decided to continue her character from Bad Boys 2, that is music to my ears. And like I said, I really dug the partnership between these two, because not only do they have good chemistry, but you also see the vibe and camaraderie between each other. They have been doing this a while, but they also are willing to do what's necessary. And with Nancy McKenna being the mother, like, she's kind of the corny one of this half of this partnership, but at the same time, she's not afraid to let Mama Bear come out. And Sid Burnett, I do like how they further the mythology of her and her family within the Burnett family, and we see her relationship with her estranged father, played by Ernie Hudson. And quick side note, it's nice to be reminded that Ernie Hudson, he's more than just Ghostbusters. He's a legit good actor. I saw that earlier this summer when I watched The Crow for the first time, and I see that here in this movie. Give this man his flowers and give him more work outside of Ghostbusters, please. But the show does tackle Sid's trauma from everything she did from when she was working with the DA back in Miami. We get to see that further explained. And one thing I didn't expect to see is that she is bisexual on the show. And that's not really an issue, but it's just something that kind of threw me off. And of all the fucked up shit that Sid Burnett has to deal with, it turns out that Nancy McKenna, she's just as fucked up as she is, because it turns out not only was she in the army, but she has a criminal past that involves her brother and her mother. Her brother Nico accidentally killed their mother, and she kind of went on the straight and narrow after that, but she's still looking out for Nico, and she's dating a district attorney and has a stepdaughter that has nothing to do with her. But we also get to see throughout that show how that relationship begins to mend itself, even if at the expense of her husband. I like how the show tackles basically how the sins of the past comes back to haunt you in the future. In addition to Sid and Nancy, there's also the Bens, played by Dwayne Martin and Zach Gilford. Of course, this isn't the first time Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Martin worked with each other. Looking at You, Deliver Us from Eva. But the Bens provide some much needed comedy for this show. But at times, and look, I'm not saying this is how I feel, but this is just a criticism, an annoying criticism that has been made over the past couple of years. But a criticism that I've heard is that lately in your favorite franchises, they try to make the female characters more competent than the male characters and that the guys need to step off or whatever. I feel like that is a stupid one, but in the case of this show, it kind of feels like that at times, but regardless, it doesn't bother me that much. It does feel like they try to make Sid and Nancy the more tough ones, while the Bens are the goofy ones. We do get a returning character for the Bad Boys movies, and that is Fletcher, played once again by John Sally. Now, I will say it was a bit bittersweet watching him in this show because, spoiler alert for Bad Boys Ride or Die, he gets shot and killed in that movie, and then watching him live in here just kind of threw me off here. But it's cool that they gave him an extended role for this show. I do like how the show sets itself apart from the Bad Boys movies by setting itself in LA, but at the same time it still maintains the vibe and energy of those movies, even right down to the partnership, because they're not trying to emulate Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, but they somehow still make the partnership their own that almost feels like Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. And despite the fact that every episode has a different case, there are some overarching cases that span both those seasons. Like the first season was more on the political side and corruption within the police force. The second season dealt with gentrification. There's even some cameos on the show, such as Danny Trejo, Tamala Jones, Kelly Hu, and Orlando Jones, who is in a role that I didn't expect him to be in. And to be quite honest, I can't really take him seriously in this kind of role. And I'm not saying I can't take Orlando Jones seriously in a serious role. It's just like I took him more seriously in Drumline than I did in this show, and it's just like, all right, come on, what are you doing here? Because I feel like at least in Drumline he was taken seriously, but he still had that snarky sense of humor to him. But moving on. Overall, I really dug this show, but too bad it got canceled after 2 seasons. But I do feel like there is a way we can incorporate this show into the Bad Boys movies if there is a Bad Boys 5 on the way. It's just a good way to give fans that did watch this show some closure to this show. And the way the second season ended, I feel like, well, spoiler alert, they're at Nancy's ex-husband's funeral. He got killed in the second to last episode of season 2, and so now Nancy, she is left adopting his daughter. But at the end of the funeral, there is a car bomb, and who did it? I feel like that is just something that they could just brush off, saying like, hey, we took care of that. But if there's a Bad Boys 5, please give us Sid Burnett, please, and bring on Jessica Alba too. I don't care how much money y'all gotta pay her. Give us a Bad Boys and LA's Finest crossover or something like it, please. In the end, I can kind of see how the show kind of got canceled, but at the same time, I feel like there is more left to be done with the show, at least for one more season. And also, like I said, Sony, please, if you can, find a way to incorporate these characters into the next Bad Boys movies to give fans of those shows some closure. All that being said, yeah, I'm not too sad to see this go. And even if they don't follow up on this show, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. If you have not watched LA's Finest, I'd say you're not really missing much, but if you do want to watch this, I'd say it's not a total waste of time, and it's a good way to further your deep dive into the Bad Boys movies. Both seasons are currently on Tubi, check it out if you can. I am going to give LA's Finest the thumbs up emoji.